Shipping a mussel alive is harder than launching a smartphone. While most assume seafood's simple, it's actually a fast-paced, tech-loaded operation. Solar-powered chillers, AI-driven routes, packaging that feeds fish when tossed, all to keep one shellfish fresh. And barely anyone knows the real story behind it. If you've ever wondered how a mussel goes from bobbing on the ocean's surface in a sleepy Spanish inlet to being plated fresh at a high-end Manhattan restaurant, here's your answer. It's a symphony of precision, patience, and straight-up hustle. It all kicks off on the sparkling shores of Galicia, Spain, a region that doesn't just flirt with the sea, it's in a full-blown relationship with it. Dotting the coastline are floating rafts known as bateas, looking like wooden dance floors for sea life. Beneath these structures hang long ropes, and this is where the magic starts. Mussel larvae, either naturally settling or deliberately seeded, latch onto these ropes and begin to grow. No cages, no chemicals, just nature doing its thing, aided by a bit of human know-how. The ropes dangle down like underwater curtains, thick with life, and over the course of 12 to 18 months they get heavy, real heavy, with thriving clusters of mussels. Now, timing is everything. Harvesting is a high-tide hustle. Boats pull up next to the bateas and hydraulic winches haul those rope lines aboard, loaded with mussels clinging for dear life. But the clock's ticking. Mussels, like any living organism, are sensitive, and they don't appreciate the upheaval. As soon as they're on deck, farmhands start stripping them from the ropes quickly but carefully. It's not just a matter of pulling them off and tossing them into bins. No, they've got to be cleared of debris, barnacles, and other hitchhikers. Think of it like giving each mussel a spa treatment before its big debut. What happens next? Immediate chilling. And we mean immediate. The freshly harvested mussels are dunked into cold seawater or passed through high-pressure jets to cool them down. The goal? Slow their metabolism without shocking their system. In this stage, agriculture meets technology, and it's not just about keeping things cold, it's about doing it in a way that doesn't damage the mussels or introduce contaminants. Now comes a fascinating part most people don't even consider. The mussels are packed alive. That's right, they're not frozen, not cooked, not preserved in brine. Alive? And keeping them that way means designing packaging that thinks like a mussel. Picture breathable crates misted with cooled seawater sprays. These keep the bivalves from suffocating or drying out. Too much moisture, and they'll drown. Too little, and they'll die of dehydration. It's a delicate balance, and tech plays a huge role. Think micro-perforated liners, smart humidifiers, and temperature-controlled packaging solutions. Once packed, it's go time. Transport kicks in, and speed is the name of the game. Short distances? They go in refrigerated trucks. Not your basic cooling trucks either. We're talking high-tech, humidity-monitored, GPS-tracked cold chain monsters designed to maintain the perfect microclimate. For longer hauls, containerized air freight or sea freight takes over. Each route is chosen based on a complex matrix of freshness, distance, and cost, where logistics and agroforestry sometimes intertwine, especially when routes pass through rural, heavily forested regions that double as transport corridors. At their destination, whether that's a seafood market in Berlin or a sushi bar in Brooklyn, the mussels aren't just dumped and shelved. No, there's an entire ritual here too. Smart restaurants and vendors have specialized tanks that mimic coastal conditions, constantly circulating filtered seawater, UV sterilization, oxygenation. You'd think it was a high-end fish spa. This isn't just about freshness, it's about safety. If even one mussel goes bad, the others are at risk, and the consumer, even more so. So the handling at this stage is just as meticulous as it was back at the farm. Here's the kicker: all of this, the farming, the harvesting, the chilling, the live packaging, the transport, the holding tanks, has to unfold like clockwork. Mussels have a survival window of 5 to 7 days post-harvest. That's it. Miss a step and it's game over. That's why tech is deeply embedded in every link of the chain. Sensors track temperature fluctuations in real time. Logistics dashboards flag delays before they become disasters. And behind it all are people. Old-school mussel farmers who grew up on the water, now teamed up with data engineers, marine biologists, and supply chain geeks. If there's a metaphor here, it's this. Mussel distribution is like running a marathon where every leg is a sprint. Each handoff, from boat to box to airport to storefront, has to hit the mark. And for all the elegance in the process, the truth is, it's fragile. One customs delay, one broken cooler, one road closure, and the whole operation can go sideways. The systems are good, but the challenges? Oh, they're real. And that's where the conversation gets even more interesting. Let's be real. Moving live mussels around the globe isn't just a logistical tightrope, it's more like juggling eggs on a tightrope. During a thunderstorm, blindfolded. You see, mussels aren't exactly low-maintenance travel buddies. They've got a narrow survival window once they leave the water, typically just 5 to 7 days. That's it. It's not just about keeping them cold, it's about maintaining just the right combination of moisture, oxygen, temperature, and peace. Yep, peace. These little guys get stressed by the tiniest vibration, the hum of a truck engine, sudden jolts during loading, even the rhythmic thump of an aircraft cabin. All of it chips away at their ability to stay alive. And here's the kicker. They don't die dramatically. They close up quietly. By the time you realize something went wrong, it's too late. Now add geography into the mix. A lot of mussel farms, almost like those in rural Galicia or the fjord-carved coasts of Norway, are nestled in remote, picturesque areas. Great for quality, not so great for logistics. These farms might be hours away from major freight hubs or airports, which means longer ground transport times before even reaching the starting line of global distribution. The challenge here isn't just distance, it's infrastructure. Narrow roads, slow-moving vehicles, ferry delays, and weather that can turn sunny coastlines into logistical nightmares all factor in. And when you're shipping something as delicate as live seafood, every added hour increases the risk. Oh, and don't even get started on customs. Live seafood doesn't exactly glide through international borders. It raises red flags, for good reason. Border agents and inspectors need to ensure that what's coming in isn't carrying diseases, invasive species, or environmental threats. That means biosecurity protocols, random inspections, paperwork that's thicker than a mussel shell, and delays that no one sees coming until they're staring at a clipboard. Imagine being a customs officer faced with a ticking biological clock and a shipment of live shellfish labeled urgent. One wrong step, and an entire batch goes belly up. Here's the paradox. Global demand for mussels is rising. People want fresh, sustainable seafood, and mussels are poster children for both. They filter water as they grow, they're low impact on marine ecosystems, and they require no feed, just good old ocean nutrients. In the world of agriculture, that's a dream. But here's the curveball. Despite the rising demand, price sensitivity is intense. Consumers want their mussels cheap, fresh, and fast. Restaurants want margins. Distributors want volume. So now you're caught between scaling up without sacrificing the care that keeps mussels alive. One bad batch, one viral tweet about food poisoning, and your brand is toast. And the economic squeeze doesn't stop there. Fuel costs are volatile. Refrigeration tech isn't cheap. Labor, especially skilled labor that knows how to handle seafood, is getting harder to find. And those fancy breathable packaging solutions? They're not coming out of a bargain bin. Every step in the chain costs money, and the end product still has to compete with frozen shrimp, farmed salmon, and mass-market shellfish from closer-to-home sources. In many ways, the tech involved in transporting mussels is more advanced than the price tag would ever suggest. The industry is like a Formula One race team trying to make money in a taxi market. So how do you navigate all this? That's where things get creative. Some farms have started forming cooperatives, pooling resources to fund shared transport hubs and cold storage facilities. Others lean heavily on data, tracking the freshness of each batch using smart sensors, syncing with customs clearance systems in advance to preempt slowdowns, and using predictive algorithms to adjust harvesting schedules based on real-time weather, market demand, and shipping capacity. But even those strategies only go so far. There's still the simple truth that mussels don't care about your spreadsheets or AI software. They care about temperature, moisture, and time. And when that clock starts ticking, it doesn't stop. It's part of what makes the entire operation feel like a high-stakes poker game. Every hand you play has to count, because no matter how perfect the harvest, how pristine the packing, or how optimized the route, if something goes wrong in hour 93 of a 96-hour trip, you're not delivering mussels, you're delivering disappointment. And yet, the very fragility of the system is what drives innovation. It's the pressure that forces farmers, tech developers, and logistics experts to keep leveling up. Because if they don't, they lose. It's that simple, that unforgiving, but also that motivating. And out of that pressure, new ideas are starting to emerge. Ideas that might just flip the script on what's possible in seafood transport. So here's the twist. All the pressure, all the complexity, This could fall apart in an instant tension. It's not killing the industry. It's doing the opposite. It's fueling one of the quietest but most fascinating tech revolutions happening in agriculture right now. And it's all anchored by one seemingly simple, slippery little creature, the mussel. Let's start with something everyone understands: cold. Cold is life when it comes to live seafood and the cold chain. It's sacred. But cold doesn't have to mean carbon heavy anymore. Enter solar-powered refrigeration units. These aren't sci-fi concepts. They're already mounted on trucks in some parts of Europe and New Zealand. The idea is simple. Why burn diesel to chill mussels when you can harness the sun? These rigs are outfitted with panels that power not just the cooling units but also onboard humidity regulators and air purifiers. The result? A live mussel doesn't just survive the trip. It lives well in a little climate-controlled vacation pod. And the carbon footprint? Dramatically lower. Now that's what you call next-gen agroforestry in motion. Energy-smart, low-emission, and tailored for living cargo. But it doesn't stop there. There's real-time tracking that's starting to look like something out of a Bond movie. Sensors in the packaging now monitor internal temperature, oxygen levels, and even subtle vibrations. Data gets beamed to cloud platforms where managers can see, down to the second, whether a shipment is thriving or heading for trouble. If the mussels start getting stressed mid-trip, alerts are sent out, reroutes can be made, and environmental settings can be tweaked on the fly. That's agriculture meets tech in the most literal sense. It's like giving every batch of mussels a tiny team of invisible caretakers riding along, keeping watch like loyal guardians. And this isn't just about shiny gadgets. There's a powerful sustainability play happening here too. Mussel aquaculture is getting a ton of love as a climate-positive food source. Why? Because mussels are natural water filters. They clean as they grow, filtering out plankton, excess nutrients, even micropollutants. And get this, they don't need feed. No antibiotics, no fertilizers. They absorb carbon, literally. It's like planting trees underwater. Some researchers argue mussel farming might actually help offset emissions from other sectors, if scaled correctly. So yeah, your plate of mussels? It's kind of a tiny climate hero. But of course, there's a trade-off. All the transport involved still carries a footprint. That's the paradox. The very act of sharing sustainable food globally introduces emissions. So the innovators are doubling down again, working on AI-powered route optimization tools that consider not just distance and cost, but carbon impact, weather forecasts, and even customs likelihood. It's like giving logistics a brain. A really, really smart one. These tools can suggest switching a shipment from air to rail mid-route if it means reducing emissions and preserving freshness. That's not just smarter. It's the kind of future-forward thinking that agriculture tech dreams are made of. And then there's the human side, the stories that don't always make the headlines. Take the indigenous mussel farmers in Aotearoa, New Zealand, for example. The Maori communities have been farming green-lipped mussels for generations, using traditional methods passed down orally. Now those practices are being fused with cutting-edge tech to form something beautifully unique. Mussel aquaculture that's deeply cultural and logistically advanced. Think GPS tagging fused with ancestral marine knowledge. Think boats using solar power guided by the stars and by route-optimized AI dashboards. It's not just about efficiency, it's about honoring history while shaping the future. There's something powerful about combining legacy with lasers, so to speak. And let's talk packaging for a second. Biodegradable materials are no longer a someday idea. Startups are cranking out seaweed-based liners and compostable crates designed to breathe just enough to keep mussels alive without suffocating them in plastic. These new materials perform just as well as the old petroleum-based ones, but break down harmlessly after use. One startup in the Netherlands even created a packaging prototype that turns into fish food after disposal. You heard that right. The box feeds the ocean once it's done delivering its cargo. It's part of a circular economy mindset that's gaining traction across the entire supply chain. The vision here is big. Imagine a future where every mussel shipment is carbon accounted in real time, where biodegradable smart packaging sends live status updates, where agroforestry partners with AI to predict weather shifts before they delay harvest, where solar power drives floating cold storage units that drift alongside mussel farms, keeping harvests chilled before they even hit the trucks. That's not fantasy. That's the trajectory. And it's not just mussels. These ideas are starting to spill over into other corners of agriculture, fruit transport, temperature-sensitive vaccines, even agroforestry-based supply chains in tropical climates. Once you nail down how to keep a live mussel healthy for 96 hours on the move, a lot of other things start to look possible. But here's the thing. All this innovation, all this effort to blend tradition with technology, it still hinges on one critical variable. People, the folks who care, the ones who notice when a mussel shell is slightly too open, the drivers who slow down on bumpy roads, the technicians who tweak a thermostat because the algorithm feels a little off. Behind all the AI, all the solar rigs and biodegradable wrap, it's still human insight that keeps the whole ecosystem alive. And speaking of ecosystems, the ripple effects of this innovation are just starting to touch down in unexpected places. So next time you see mussels on a menu, you'll know there's way more going on than meets the eye. But what do you think? Is all this tech worth it for seafood? Would you trust AI to manage your food's freshness? Or do you think we've taken it too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. And if you want to keep uncovering the surprising ways agriculture and tech are reshaping what ends up on your plate, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a beat. There's a lot more coming.